A man looks into the bathroom mirror and asks himself who he is, as he sees a whole other reflection. One side says that he's Lee Hoyeol, and the other Grell Claudiarchus Romeo, the successor of a once great clan. While making some tea and also drinking it, he thinks that he unfortunately became the character he made 12 years ago when he was in his second year of middle school. Second year, precisely. When he finished, he was extremely happy and quite obsessed, but now he regrets it, as this character was made at the height of his puberty. And this entire situation is because of that one game, History of the Arcana Continent. One of, if not the best virtual games, and another world, until its service was no longer available. It was never topped by another game, making it a game that holds legendary status. However, the day service for Arcana was stopped, along with the news that the CEO, Raymond, had gone missing. Arcana seemingly appeared in the real world. Out of nowhere, breaks in reality began appearing throughout the world, and the monsters from the game made their appearance. That was when everyone thought the world was ending, but people were assimilated with their in-game characters. That is when players appeared throughout the world. Not only did they have skills from the game, they were also able to defeat the once-thought invincible monsters and save the world. That is how players got the title of heroes. Naturally, he also fantasized about becoming one of these players, but soon he realized that even if he were to awaken his powers, he wouldn't be that famous. The cost of buying a single virtual reality machine was tens of millions of won, and even renting one would cost too much for them. His father apologized at the time, saying that he thought he would at least let him play as many games as he wanted. This was when his father's business collapsed fully. His sister tried to comfort him, and the mother tried to take the blame, which he didn't like. This was when Lee was faced with reality and its grim truth. He had no choice but to quit Arcana early. However, if he had known this would have happened, he would have done anything to play. Since he only managed to play for a few months, his stats are extremely bad, and even though his power was awakened, he wouldn't have wanted to spawn as a character he made while going through puberty. The outside him comments on the tea, noting that it's quite good, making the inside him go crazy. Grandel Claudiarchus Romeo, a character he made during the height of his puberty, was a character he was very invested in. His story goes as follows. Granal was a successor of a great family. However, it was massacred by a demon, and he was left alive and alone. In order to get his revenge, he made the decision to become a demon hunter. This was a very cringy story he played around with, and also something he obsessed over while in middle school, which he laments now. In other circumstances, these memories would have been just something to laugh at. However, as a grown man, this is just plain embarrassing. Granal says that he missed having memories like this, making Lee cringe and demand he stop speaking in that weird manner. What is he going to do at work? Will he even be able to function as a member of society moving forward? If he meets his boss, who likes to pick on him whenever he has the chance, Granel will certainly do something that will get him fired. He wonders what to do, and Granel notes that nobles should not bow down in the face of adversity. Everything he tries to say comes out completely differently. Is this really how it is to assimilate with the in-game character? He remembers that most people said it wasn't a large difference. So why did he become like this? Taking into consideration that he can't work anywhere like this, he has no choice but to become a full-time player. But he doesn't remember much of Arcana, as he last played it over 10 years ago. He gets on the computer as first he needs to search things up since he doesn't know what it really takes to become a player. The money that ranker players receive after eliminating high-level ruptures is in the hundreds of millions. However, since it's all dependent on risking life and limb on the battlefield, it's all pretty useless information. Not only is his own life more important than some money, Granel also doesn't agree, as he has no need for material goods. He has tasted abundance once already. For this reason, he holds no real greed. That is why he needs to take a look and see what demon hunters do these days. He is quite surprised to find only 2 pages worth of information, and besides, it's not even wiki pages, it's just news articles. He's quite shocked when he finds out that Owan, and everyone in it, was killed with 0 survivors to speak of. The Owan boss was the only town where one could become a demon hunter, and the holy land of the demon hunters. Was that Owan really destroyed? There is just no way. It's not like nobody plays the role anymore, but because the role was basically deleted from existence. However, demon hunters were also quite useless. 10 years ago, they had low stats and a really awkward build path, with even their skills being extremely weak. Since leveling through monsters was quite tough, they were dependent on the experience given through quests. But when they confronted demons, they were the experts, and no other class could compare. However, demons usually appeared only in demon hunter quests, and most of these quests garnered a reputation as they were very grindy. Not only was the role pointless most of the time, Demon Hunter was in general considered the most useless class in the game, but the role being different and not being able to proceed to the next class are entirely different things. This situation is just plain bad, as all the NPCs that taught skills are now dead. He starts reading a chat log, where people are discussing something regarding demon hunters. That's when a comment grabs his attention, which says that new demons were added in an update. He reads about the reality update, which made demons spawn as normal mobs, and due to this, players' injuries have skyrocketed because of the strong debuffs. Even level 200 players struggle. Lee thinks that if demons really appeared in reality, why haven't the demon hunters taken care of them? Just maybe, he's the only demon hunter left after Akon fell. But if that's the case, should he really take the initiative here? Even with his 10-year setback, there is nothing saying that the demons he knew are the same ones appearing right now, as a lot of things can happen in 10 years. Very high-level players are struggling with them, so what can he do? Suddenly, his past self calls him weak, as he, the great Granel, does not run from mere demons. That is his pride. After all, no matter what temptation or taunts demons send his way, they will never hurt the pride of Granel. He thinks that it's about time he did something, and Granel notes that this was just pointless thinking, as there is no need for hesitation. Thousands die because of demons, but he promised to send them back to hell. Several years passed after the Great Cataclysm, and many things were destroyed as a result, but humans are resourceful creatures, and were able to get back on their feet. Life came back to normal as if nothing had happened, and people quickly adjusted to this new world. However, where there is light, darkness is bound to appear, and the negative emotions of the newly adjusted people made great food for devils and other evil creatures. A man is possessed entirely and sends something to a party that holds a devilish figure. The party leader, a man who goes by the name of Namagaraman Shran and is the tanker, notes that the last member of their party will arrive soon. Granel arrives at the scene, and Shran presents him as the last party member. They both exchange greetings, but Granel's attention is on the rupture, which only players can see, and it has no effect on normal people, who can just walk through it. He would have been one of those people had he not awakened. More importantly, this dungeon is fit for levels 35 to 40. Not a bad place to start for a level 55 like himself. He also looked into the average level of the players that are going through this dungeon, and they all average around level 200. That's a level he's not even close to at the moment, so he needs to work hard and level up fast. Thankfully, high-level players aren't the only ones who awaken, so he was able to find a party with a similar level to him. They all introduced themselves. The close-range deal tanker is named Han Sang-guk, the close-range damage dealer is named Choi Jung-hun, and the magic damage dealer is named Seo Jung-yoon. Shem says that considering the progression rate, another party must have gone in, so they will do so as well. They will prepare for a bit and go inside exactly 5 minutes from now. Granel looks at the destruction progress, which stands at 19.8%. This is called the progress rate, and once it hits 100%, the rupture breaks down and the monsters are let loose into the real world. Therefore, players are allowed to freely raid the ruptures, as only they are able to even approach this ticking time bomb full of beasts. Lee thinks that everyone is really friendly, which he is glad for, so he should say something to the party members too. As an only son with 3 sisters, he had to watch out every day in order to survive the great sister wars that would often occur, so going with the atmosphere is a piece of cake for him. Granel says that they need not worry, as he is here. Lee laments ever trying to speak, and the party ignores him fully. With his pride hurt, Lee just decides not to speak anymore, as he can't bear much more of this. They enter the null underground storage, the food storage, to be precise. Inside it looks just like a regular station, although broken and with blood scattered everywhere. The party arrives at the stairs, and Jung-yoon notes that she doesn't see any signs of nulls despite the name of this place. Shimin says that a party definitely came through before them, but they needn't worry, as they would just take their share if they take the right route. The party is glad to have such a dependable leader, but Granel notices that something is off. They find some nulls, and Shimin urges everyone to get ready for battle. However, he charges in instantly, which the others take as him simply being eager to fight. Granel thinks that their entire combination is a pretty normal one to go with, but it's all over the place, as the tanker is aggroing the monsters instead of protecting his party. The deal tanker is doing most of the defense, and the mage is doing the most damage. Is this really how people do it these days? Well, he can't complain, as he's pretty useless at the moment. He opens his inventory and he spots that he has a few weapons, but nothing useful, so he should fight as little as humanly possible until he finds a suitable weapon. Suddenly, an arrow comes from his side, and he notices that countless nullies are standing in the shadows, ready to pierce them with arrows. Granel warns the party about this, and the nullies start coming out. They desperately try to defend themselves, and Shimin just leaves. Jong-hun demands he come back, but in that moment of anger, he leaves himself wide open for an attack, which Anoli takes advantage of. The blade almost touches him, but an arrow kills the Noli in one shot. That arrow was from Granel, who notes that this beast needs training, and it doesn't really suit him, but punishment is necessary, and he must be the one to do it. Jong-hun thanks him, although he's quite weirded out by the way he speaks. The party struggles to keep the Nolis in front, and two manage to slip out and go straight for Jong-yoon, who doesn't know what to do. Granel urges her to calm down, as he will get rid of the ones that dare approach, so she should cast a strong spell even if it takes a bit to cast. She says that she will, and he gets to shooting. Jong-hun asks how much longer until the casting is done, as they are being overwhelmed. Eventually, she manages to fully cast it and demands that everyone get out of the way. A myriad of fireballs come out of the spell circle, and they create a large explosion which seems to take out all of the Nolis. Jong-yoon asks Granel if he's okay, who notes that she should worry about her teammates. He looks at the dead Nolis and wonders if he can get that expensive arrow back. Jong-yoon gives Sang-gyuk a healing potion, and Jong-hyun is extremely mad. He rushes up to Cheomin and asks just what the hell he was doing. He can understand that he didn't know about the ones who hid themselves, but why did he decide not to help? He basically walked them into a death trap, so he should explain himself right this instant. Cheomin smirks and starts laughing uncontrollably and very loudly. Dong-yoon says that this is not in any way funny, and if it weren't for his famous brother, he wouldn't be worth anything. Does he really think that he's all that great, a bastard like him? The lights suddenly all go out, and Cheomin notes that if he's really asking if this is funny, of course it is. How can it not be when a bunch of moronic fools are struggling in front of him like this? Granel's natural enemy skill activates, and it's revealed that this guy is a demon. Shuin finds it funny that they realize so late, but then again they are extremely dumb anyway. The party wonders what he is talking about, but before long they are all affected by his skills, and they see something which they fear the most. In Sunjarek's case, he sees his party members pleading for help while their skin melts. Their mentalities hit rock bottom, and they are all affected by the fear status. Schumann laughs at these pathetic humans, who are groveling in the illusion of fear. Suddenly, Granel charges in, and almost manages to strike him. Cheomin notes that he must not care for this particular human, as if he dies, this human will die as well. Granel thinks that piercing his armor isn't a possibility right now, so he should focus on the gaps for now. Cheomin attacks but misses, giving Granel the opportunity to attack. His skill, Natural Enemy, activates once again, as his battle power rapidly increases due to the presence of a demon. This attack also hits his armor, but now it cracks. Cheomin charges in, without a care in the world, and notes that humans are the fakest creatures to exist. Earlier he was friends with this human, but now he wants to kill him. Granel just slashes his face open, causing him to wail from the pain. He was slashed by a mere human, but he feels it from this distinct pain, that he was slashed with silver. Granel demands he not talk to him, as he doesn't talk with his prey. Cheomin looks down and wonders where it all went wrong for it to become like this. He remembers the time when his brother told him to quit going into ruptures and become an analyst at his guild. He knew he did this out of worry, but he didn't want to live like a loser all of his life. Sometime later, he was also being mocked by a few goons who knew about his brother and urged him not to be a disappointment to such a great and powerful brother. All he wanted was for his brother to be proud of him. That's when the imp came and gave him a hand. All he needed to do was watch from the backlines while he worked. That is how he was possessed, and he watched his party almost die because of himself and the imp who had possessed him. With his mentality so low, he couldn't hope of getting out of the imp's grasp. However, Granel had awoken him, as the imp was weakened by his constant attacks. He screams from the pain and demands Granel stop this, as if he continues, this human will also die. Does he really not care at all? Does he want to be labeled as a murderer for the rest of his life? Granel looks at him and notes that if this is his pride, he gets it. The real Traman grabs and holds his body, even if it means that he will die. Granel uses this opportunity to cut his head clean off, and notes that with this, he has received his pride. Later, Shanshurin wakes up with his head still intact. He is quite confused, and everyone from the party asks if he's okay. He begins shaking, as he saw himself, how his body had its head cut off. Granel notes that he already told them that they needn't worry about a thing, as he is here for them. A human's negative emotions can lead to the empowerment of demons, so they should all be prideful and hold no fear. A demon hunter's attacks only affect the targeted demon. These words seem to move Coleman somewhat, and Lee notes that he didn't forget that logic, even if it's been so long. However, the imp fee didn't drop a single item, so it means he was dead broke. Later that day, Cheolman goes to his brother and shows him a post about a certain dungeon, and about a party whose leader was possessed by an imp. The comments don't believe a word of the story, and call it fake news. His brother asks if what he wants is for him to believe that story, and Coleman confirms it. The brother notes that even if he's the guild leader, Just taking a person's story for granted like this is a bit too much. Cheolman explains that the party leader from this story, the one who was possessed by a demon, was him. This causes Nam Taman, level 368, and the guild master of Gaon, to spill his drink all over the table from surprise. Taman is surprised that Coleman wants to quit being a player and become Gaon's analyst, as he was sternly against the idea before, so he's finding it hard to believe. Taman asks why he doesn't trust his own brother. Don't they share the same blood? Taman urges him to stop being so sarcastic about it, and he apologizes, noting that he was only kidding around. Taman asks if he's also not kidding about becoming an analyst, but Cheolman says no, he's very serious about that. He has realized what his weakness truly is and what his real role should be. He's been struggling to keep up with him until now, but now he wants to take pride in himself and carve his own path. Taman notes that his boost in confidence has made him quite curious about what kind of person that guy is to change him so much. Other than having killed the imp through him, if the status abnormality didn't affect him in the slightest, it must mean that his mentality stat is unparalleled. He also fought with a dagger and magic. From what he said, there are thousands upon thousands of classes in Arcana, but he has never heard of a class that uses those two things. He also doesn't get why he went into that specific rupture, considering he could have done harder ruptures with those specs of his. Coleman says that he knows how this story sounds, and that it's truly hard to believe, but he asks him to believe in him. Tama notes that he trusts him fully, since he was witness to all of this after all. Boss pattern analysis, guild management, and the scouting of new players. He got to where he is today thanks to his guidance, so of course he would trust him easily. He even brought a contract since he's his older brother, and now the most prided Gaon analyst. Coleman becomes embarrassed from all the praise but thanks his brother for being so kind. Taman laughs out loud and tells him to look at the contract to see if the terms are to his liking. Cheolman does so and starts sweating profusely when he finishes reading them. Back at the apartment, Lee notices that his level went up by quite a bit. He is quite happy with this, but Granel notes that it's too little of an increase, and Lee says that Nobis don't give much XP, so killing a single imp leveled them up by a whopping 12. Granel says that he doesn't concern himself with such trivial matters, but Lee sure does, and wonders how to spend the stat points efficiently. He also thinks that he needs to go to bed since he feels tired, but Granel has other plans, as he thinks this place is a mess, so he gets to cleaning. Later in the evening, Granel is cooking and takes his sweet time in making the perfect and healthiest dish he can. Lee is already starving, as he forgot that Granel followed regular schedules and practiced self-restraint like this. However, he learned something quite crucial from all of this. The traits he gave Granel are being applied to the real world. Other than the job and level, he would have just showered and instantly lain down to rest, but he's becoming much healthier because of him. But what are his talents? Of course, his talents are not similar to a single one, as he is talented in magic and can imitate most spells just by seeing them a single time. He is also very intelligent and quite fit as well. Granel thinks that this is enough, and rewards himself with some tea. However, he has to check if these traits also apply here in the real world. Suddenly, he gets a message from Chan, which is quite long. He ignores it for now without reading it, as he has more important things to attend to. The first thing that he will be checking is to see if Granel can really imitate most spells just by seeing them once. He pulls up a few videos and gets to writing. Kilman and Taman stare in shock at Granel's text. Kilman wonders if he got an offer from another guild, and Taman notes that can't be possible, as they offered him a house, a car, all of the fees paid, and a deal with a split of 9.5. How could another guild ever hope to surpass that offer? Chilman says that he can't be sure, but after the Mage Tower appeared in Seoul, foreign guilds from around the world have been setting up branch offices around here. Timon asks who dares step foot in his own territory, and Kilman explains that even if it's not a foreign guild that offered him something, all of the top guilds are right here in Seoul, so it might have been one of them. Timan smashes the table and says that he can't let this go now, as no other guild can give an offer that can actually rival this one. This is a contract so special that he wouldn't dare show it to the higher-ups of GAM. He gets up and starts dressing, noting that he can't move on from this, and asks Coleman if he knows what he looks like, as he is going to bring him into their guild before some other guild nabs him from them. Coleman thinks of how best to explain him, as he is quite the puzzling individual, and Taman urges him to think faster, as they don't have that much time. Chilman thinks about him and notes that he looks exactly like a fantasy novel's aristocrat. A very fancy one at that. Grinnell writes down all of the magical techniques he had seen on the phone, and Lee thinks that he can see it, the fundamentals of magic, that is. He is now certain he can use these things, if he has enough mana, as expected of the great Grinnell. Now he can forgive him for being extremely cringy, as he is the best genius around. Grinnell finds his reaction quite rude, and Lee thinks that now, With the stuff he knows, he can distribute his stat points efficiently. He doesn't know how Grenell's talents will go, but he is open to any and all possibilities. He puts 2 points in stamina and agility each, and 7 into mana since it is quite low. With 1 point left, he is reminded about Grenell's sad past, wondering why he even wrote such a dark past. The last point he puts into luck for his and Grenell's sake, who will have to work hard for them from now on. He only raised luck from 1 to 2, but that means he basically doubled his luck. Who knows, maybe tomorrow he will find some money on the street. In the morning, he looks into the mirror with a shocked expression, as he has found much more than money on the street. A whole class quest. The prologue of Counterattack. After Arcana basically became reality, quests became much rarer, and the reason for it was quite simple. There are not many NPCs in the real world to be able to give quests. Even a normal quest is much rarer than before, but what he got was a class quest, which seems to be a normal quest related to his Demon Hunter class. But from what he remembers, this shouldn't be an ordinary quest. He finds an article about a paladin by the name of Goiver, who had also received a class quest. It is a quest given to only one person among those who share the same class. It is such a big deal that just receiving one is enough to make it into the top news articles, an amazing kind of quest that people start mentioning would get someone into the top ranks. Logically speaking, there is no way a level 67 like himself would actually get a class quest, so it must mean that he's really the only demon hunter left in this world. However, it does make sense. Akan was the post of the demon hunters, and naturally, it sounds like a great place. But the reality was quite shocking. The demon hunter training instructor welcomed them warmly by making them climb a 1,000 meters cliff. This is when Lee was met with the reality of the class he chose. The quests were a repetition of rather pointless hard work, and the facilities were inadequate, to say the least. Even for meals they had to climb a mountain, and all the NPCs did was scream and yell. Anyone with a sense of self-preservation would have quit. But Grenell found it quite nice, as demons dig into the human mind, and that training made him much stronger. Lee thinks that all of that is in the past, and best left there, so he should take a look at what kind of quest he was given. He opens the tab, and his face drops. The Aokavyu, the Anti-Arcana United Korean branch, is a facility formed in order to reduce the chaos and damages all over the world. They hired all of the employees who had previously worked on Arcana and its development. In response to Arcana updating, an update that was going to reflect in the real world, they collected information and related it to Arcana while also analyzing it for the players. In other words, they are overworked businessmen. An employee damns Arcana for ever existing while stretching, and also asks another worker who had been there for longer if there will be a new Rupture update this week, as it's already past 8. He says that they can only hope that doesn't happen, and the laid-back worker notes that Raymond is extremely creepy. He must be the one managing the homepage and always uploading content, isn't he? The experienced worker tells him to stop making so much chit-chat and keep clicking refresh. The laid-back worker notes that he was just curious, as he uploads the content on the homepage. The same things happened in real life a little bit later. Suddenly, an update appears, and they both start sweating profusely. The whole office is in a frenzy, and one person even starts writing his notice of quitting, while another unplugs all of the phones, as the press will surely call them. This update is based around demons, with a new Rupture appearing containing the Count family's fortress territory and the territory outskirts. There are also new monsters, who are all quite high in level, the lowest being 220. There is also a new named monster, Count Ascura, who is level 4. The laid-back worker thinks that this is crazy, as the rank 1 player currently is only level 430. This is just plain insanity. Unfair update, not meant to be cleared. He thinks that this is too hard even if a bunch of rankers got together. The experienced worker says that this isn't the issue, as the whole association wouldn't be able to do anything here. The laid-back worker asks about the Mage Tower, as the NPCs there might be of some help. The experienced worker explains that the NPCs won't do anything unless the tower itself is at risk, so they will certainly not help. Every which way they swing it, it's impossible. They are basically telling them to watch people die. It's so over, as this Rupture will certainly have a breakout. The laid-back worker tells him not to jump to conclusions like this, as if they fail the Rupture raid, those things will come and kill people in the real world. The experienced worker thinks that the updates up until now were very doable, but this destroys that balance completely. An unthinkable event. Unless some miracle appears, they are screwed. Grenell looks at the quest, which started with the hunted demon condition, which he completed. Now he has a repeated quest, to train his weak body. Lee laments having to do physical work again. It's almost as if he has never left action in the first place. His entire body is shaking. Is it really okay to train this hard? What if he just ups and dies? Grenell can barely make a sandwich, because his entire body is unstable. He thinks that making a sandwich with a new look like this isn't bad once in a while, and Lee asks him to stop spilling it everywhere. However, he does feel like he achieved something, as he would have given up right away if it wasn't for Granel's pride in having to accomplish anything that he puts his mind to. Now that he completed that dumb quest, he can get some well-earned sleep and is also quite excited to see what quest is next. Early in the morning, at a park, Granel is doing pull-ups and Lee is extremely furious. He got another quest of the same nature as the last, to run 20 kilometers, do 1,000 push-ups, 500 pull-ups, and 300 burpee tests, which he did already. Lee wonders why they are going through this type of quest again and again, as it's already been a week since they started. Once he completes one, another just pops up the next day. Granel sits on a bench, extremely exhausted at this point, and Lee thinks that he is only able to do all of this because of Granel's traits. But how many more quests does he need to do in order to get a reward? Suddenly, the system notes that he has completed a week of daily quests and rewards him with 2 stamina and 2 dexterity. Lee finds these rewards amazing, as they are permanent too. Items that raise stats are extremely expensive. It takes millions of won just to raise 1 point, whatever the seller wants to receive. However, he just raised 4 points of his stats without even leveling up. That is just straight up broken. If it's a repeat quest, it must mean that he gets this reward every time, which he's very happy with. Granel says that he would be able to do it 10 times a day for a reward like this, while shaking, and Lee tells him to calm down. Suddenly, he hears some news from the radio of the grannies who are at the park with him. Most guilds have decided to plainly give up on the new Rupture raid. At the news, a reporter tells everyone about the new update, and the new monster Count Ascura. He is a half-demon, half-vampire hybrid, and his level is 430, which is the highest a monster has ever been. It is also assumed that this Rupture raid will be the most difficult one ever. Granel watches all of this on his phone, while brushing his teeth, and Lee wonders how anyone will be able to beat a level 430 monster. People panic, as the boss monster seems impossible to beat, and most large guilds pulled out instantly when they heard about him. Lee watches all of this go down, and thinks that demons are what players have the most difficulty with currently, as they grow stronger the longer they battle, and players also have to deal with the abnormalities they throw at them. This is why people say that one needs to be 10 levels higher in order to defeat a demon. Therefore, Count Ascura, with his towering level, will have no opponents. If it weren't for this new class quest, that is Lady Dam's, Arcana and everything that it stands for, as the only vampire alive right now is Ascura, it's basically telling him to fight it. He is scared. But that's a given, as he's supposed to defeat an impossible enemy. But these are only Lee's emotions, as his heartbeat is actually calmer than ever. This body is not his anymore. So how does Granel feel about all of this? Of course he is ready, as these inferior species are threatening to interfere with his time. So he will punish them for this heavy sin they carry. Lee expected this, that this crazy bastard would want to kill them. Lee gathers information about the Rupture, which seems to be in Russia, so his first destination needs to be the Mage Tower, as there is a portal there, which lets users teleport anywhere instantly. This is one of the main reasons why many large guilds, all over the world, have a branch in Korea. He smirks at his phone and thinks that it's best he takes a taxi, rather than the train, as he will have to change trains too much. Granel says that he has to get going, as time is of the essence in this situation. Lee demands he not leave like that, and he stops, noting that he forgot something. Lee is relieved, but his relief is shattered into bits as Granel grabs a few packs of instant tea, as he can't miss out on tea time, the most important time of the day. News outlets all gather around the Mage Tower, and get ready to interview the Gaian Guild, who are planned to arrive shortly. A newbie reporter notes that there are lots and lots of reporters, and asks one of the camera crewmen if Gaian is really going to come. He says that it's likely as the new Rupture is in Russia, and the Mage Tower is close to them. Suddenly the Gaian Guild arrives, with Taman in the front. The crewman rushes in, and so do other reporters, with countless questions about how they are going to raid the Rupture and if they are planning to share information with other guilds. The newbie reporter rushes in and asks Taman how he's going to fight Count Ascura. Kilman notes that they would like to take interviews later, but Taman laughs and notes that it's quite a shame that they have no method of actually killing Count Ascura. They never really considered that kind of thing when entering Ruptures anyway, and they chose to go earlier than other guilds to beat their competitors. Naturally, they will also not be sharing any information, as even if they demand it under the guise of world peace or some nonsense like that, they won't give it to them. If they really strived for world peace, shouldn't they challenge the Ruptures themselves instead of sitting back like cowards? The newbie reporter doesn't know what to really say about all of this. But suddenly, the Shining Guild arrives, with their leader, Lox, who is level 3099, in the front, and grabs everyone's attention. Their butler notes that they will have to go on foot because of the crowd, and one of the members thinks that Gaian Guild's words were quite harsh. Locke notes that he's just anxious, as all the large guilds are coming to Korea because of the Mage Tower, and their position is getting lower and lower. He's most likely betting everything on this expedition. Shellman sees that he's concerned and notes that there is no need to be anxious, as they will take things slowly. That is the best way to do things. Tamon asks if he tried to contact Lee again, but Shellman notes that he didn't have time, as the update had taken place, which made them quite busy. Tamon says that if he's as strong as anticipated, maybe he will try to raid the rupture. Perhaps they will see him in the Mage Tower. While in a bus, Granel watches another video about magic, and thinks that this marks the 100th video he watched regarding magic, so he understands fully now. There are 3 levels to magic activation: inspecting the mana, interfering with it, and finally manifesting it. He uses a skill in the bus, and the driver tells him not to use skills in here as it is quite dangerous. Lee urges Granel to apologize, who does so quite pompously. He thinks that he just learned a skill from watching a video, so it's going to be quite helpful, as he didn't have many to begin with. He opens the skill tab, but the skill he just used isn't there. Is this, perhaps, a bug of sort? Eventually he arrives at the Mage Tower, which looks completely different from the outside. He approaches the portal and suddenly feels something vague, almost as if he could also manifest this type of teleportation magic. It might actually be easier to understand than the ignition magic from earlier. A man carrying something suddenly bumps into him and sends him straight into the portal. Taman demands he watch where he is going from now on, as they are making them look bad. Shulman thinks that the man who was pushed into the portal looked like Granel, but his thought is interrupted by Taman, who asks him for the briefing. Shulman starts explaining that the new rupture is in Russia, and it looks like this. The outer circle is the territory's outskirts, and there are countless entrances. The inner circle is the Count family's territory, and there are about 30 entrances. The last is the innermost circle, the fortress rupture, where the boss monster Count Ascura resides. This is just an assumption based on shapes and patterns, but if the rupture breaks, it's likely that Count Ascura's castle will be summoned in the real world. In Russia, countless news outlets film the new rupture, and even a vlogger is there who starts live streaming his experience. Suddenly, Granel arrives, and the vlogger tells him to find another rupture as he was here first. Granel tells him to move at once, as he hasn't the patience for something like this. Lee just meant that he was cold, but of course it came out like something else. He arrives at the front of a rupture, the territory outskirts. He just hopes that from here on out, it's warmer inside. A woman is slaying a few zombies with her group, telling her to wait as she is moving too fast. This is Leon Bellucci, level 3 hate, and the Berserker Guildmaster. Her trait is to say lots of words that need to be censored. Granel arrives on the other side of the portal, and thinks that this must be the outskirts of the territory. Lee doesn't like it one bit, as it's even colder in here, but Granel likes it, as this weather is making his blood boil and keeping him warm. Such a great way to begin the hunt. Suddenly, a few growls can be heard from behind him, and when he looks, more than a few bloodied wolves appear, all level 230. Granel thinks that they have a pretty high level, and he's only level 67. However, with the natural enemy skill, he can surely come out of this victorious. Granel says that these must be the Count's guard dogs. They really chose the wrong owner. He summons his dagger and notes that he will make them unable to be ignorant, and then they will realize the fear of being hunted. In a different part of the outskirts, Lan's group assesses the dead wolves, while she starts kicking one who is already dead, saying some things that YouTube certainly wouldn't like. One of her guild members urges her to calm down just a bit, but another dismisses this, as this is just how she is. Finally, she calms down and looks upon the wolf, who is surely dead now, if he wasn't previously. The guild members talk about how they already killed dozens upon dozens of these things, but there's seemingly no end to them. That's when Leonie notices that something is very strange with them. These wolves hold no fear. It's as if they don't even know what that is in the first place. A guild member asks what she's talking about, and another urges her to not try and seem sharp, as it's clearly not working. She says that isn't why she's saying this. It's that it feels really ominous for no reason. For example, have they ever seen even one whimper or look of pain while they killed them? The party can't say that they have, and this leaves them quite puzzled. Suddenly, a desperate howl can be heard from a distance, and they notice that it's clearly not a normal howl. It's a cry for help. Rather, they didn't sound like that when they were killing them, so what could make them do that? Leonie notes that if they won't look, they won't know, so they should follow. The party urges her to wait, and one of the members signals the others to rush, as their guild leader is on another crazed sprint. Granel uses the bow and thinks that he can feel the mana that is gathered at the arrowhead. It's not a good arrow, as its craftsmanship is quite poor, but he can inspect the mana on the arrowhead and interfere with it, and if he does that, he can manifest whatever he wants to. He covers the arrow in flames and shoots a wolf, instantly killing it. The others are now hesitant to even attack at this point, but they also can't run away, as they can't escape Granel's agility. Later, Leonie arrives and is struck at what she is seeing. A lone man among countless wolf bodies, enjoying some tea, as it's most likely tea time. One of the guild members wonders if he has a fire arrow magic skill, and Leonie wonders who this bastard is. Who in their right mind dresses up in a suit for a rupture raid? And why is he even drinking tea in the midst of all the flames? A guild member suggests that he's most likely a streamer, and he probably started following a guild, but couldn't catch up, so he decided to rest here. Leonie thinks that is pretty stupid and talks with him. Noting that it's very dangerous around this area, she tells him that a civilian shouldn't be inside, and he must get out now. Grenell just side-eyes her and continues drinking his herbal tea. Leonie is extremely mad that he ignored her, while her guild members try very hard to contain their laughs. She tries to scold him for ignoring her so rudely, but that's when the guild members demand she watch out, as new enemies have arrived and are surrounding them. Quickly, the party gets ready to defend themselves, but are very scared at the sheer number of them and wonder where they came from in the first place. These are bloodied bandits, and seem to be at the same level as the wolves, level 200. Leonie demands everyone get into position, and they begin attacking the bandits. A guild member urges everyone to be cautious, as most of them are brandishing weapons. Leonie gets into position to activate her skills and slashes countless bandits in only a second. She tells her party that they have nothing to worry about, but she gets proven otherwise, as on a nearby hill countless archers are ready to unleash a flurry of arrows on them, their deadly red eyes glistening even through the darkness. A member notes that they are basically surrounded, so what do they do now? That's when Grenell finishes his tea, and Leonie is extremely surprised that he didn't leave. Is he actually insane? This is not the time for tea at all, so he should run already. Grenell looks at the thermos and notes that now it's pretty doable. The bandits unleash their flurry of arrows, and Leonie can only look up, as there is basically nowhere to run to. Grenell starts inspecting the mana that is inside of the thermos bottle, and interferes with it. What is left to do is manifest. In order to get the skill he wants, in the scale he wants, he needs tons of mana that he cannot really handle at this level. If his assumption about this is wrong, he will pass out instantly by simply trying to manifest this skill. However, what if these magic spells that he's always using are not skills? A surge of mana rushes within him as he gains new meaning of mana and its uses. A large beam of blue mana comes from the ground, and Leonie prepares for the worst. But the worst doesn't happen, as a giant wall of rocks has saved them from the countless arrows. She thinks that it must be alchemy, as she has never seen anything like this ever. To have a skill that can make great walls such as this one means that the person must be quite powerful. Grenell explains that it's not a skill, and what he is using is magic, pure magic, without restraints. The other party members are just as surprised but still glad that they were rescued. Still, they wonder if he is an alchemist, and what is he doing here? If he really is one, as alchemists are usually production workers. Leonie also wonders what he means by magic, and Grenell thinks that it's very possible to change the form of something if he can interfere with the mana of the object. It is closer to alchemy rather than magic, so they aren't exactly wrong, but not right either. Suddenly, the wall starts rumbling as the bandits have broken through and are coming from the side. Grenell finds this to be unfortunate, as he will have to push tea time back once again. The guild prepares for battle once again, and Leonie does so as well, while telling Grenell to scurry to the back for now. He has other plans, however, and summons his bow and arrow. One of the members asks for a healer, as someone has been gravely injured, but this gives a bandit the opportunity to strike from behind, leaving him no room to dodge. Suddenly, an arrow blows the bandit away instantly, and the member wonders if there was ever such an archer like this in their guild. Leonie is surprised that he is an archer, and wonders what the wall was about, if that is the case. Grenell engulfs the arrow in flames, surprising Leonie even more. Is this man a mage? Perhaps? But no, he has archery, alchemy, and magic. Just who can he be? Eventually, the guild takes care of the bandits, and the ones who went to scout say that there aren't any more in the surrounding area. Leonie congratulates them for doing a good job, but she is clearly frustrated about something. That something, or someone, is Grenell. He is in such a dangerous rupture and dresses like that, which she finds utterly crazy. Plus, he also won't answer anything she questions him about properly and doesn't look tired at all, though he is most likely holding it in. It's quite embarrassing to even think this, but if he wasn't there to help, they all would have died. So it makes one wonder if he is a ranker or something similar. He is also quite handsome, but that's beside the point. She should just go and thank him for the much-needed help. However, he did ignore her previously, so saying thanks won't work. Suddenly, he looks at her while making his tea, making her face red from blush. Leonie swiftly looks away and wonders why he's looking so intently at her, as she doesn't like him or anything. Grenell continues staring, making her head spin with ideas. Does he perhaps want to drink tea with her or something of that nature? Well, if he does share, She wouldn't refuse. Probably. Suddenly, he calls her and she asks what it is. He demands that she stop looking at him that way, as he doesn't have any tea for her. This crushes her spirit and confidence completely. Outside of the rupture, countless drones patrol the area, and a reporter from Today Arcana begins broadcasting. He says that this update brought upon lots of global attention since it has the highest level boss. Another reporter asks if this rupture is named the Territory Outskirts, and he says that she is correct, as this is the first of 3 ruptures that came with this update. There are hundreds of ruptures leading to that exact place, but the other places will become available later. Shining Gan and other guilds are already in the rupture as they speak, but which guild will be the first to clear the rupture? The first one to achieve that will most definitely gain global fame. A man watches all of this news from a tent, and another man comes in and notes that he must want some coffee since he is the director and all. He urges him to get inside fast, as he's letting snow in. The assistant asks why it's so dark in here, and the director says that he simply likes it. This way, he also asks about how the rupture is looking and if any new videos came in. The man explains that everyone is around the middle of the rupture, with the Shining Guild being the fastest right now. The director notes that if this is really the case, they should get a spot near Shining and prepare to interview them first as soon as they come out. The assistant notes that it will take a lot of time to beat it, so they should just watch the drones. Suddenly, he spots something and bolts outside, even through the camera's way. The reporter apologizes for their assistant director, as he just ran in front of the camera like a madman. The director starts yelling at them to follow the assistant right now, as a rupture has just turned blue, meaning that somebody cleared it. The reporter asks who it might be, but the director doesn't have that type of information right now. They just have to run like the wind, and be the first there. The assistant gets to the blue rupture and is quite surprised at what he is seeing. He makes contact with the director, who is ecstatic, and asks what he captured and which guild it was. Was it Gaon or perhaps Shining? The assistant explains that it's neither, and surprisingly, it's the Berserker Guild. The director finds this puzzling, as they are the 32nd in terms of rank. The assistant confirms this, and notes that he's sending him a video, as they speak. The director notes that Shining is still in the middle, and they went into a new and dangerous place, but they all look fine. Suddenly, the assistant spots a Korean person amongst them. Even though Berserker is a European guild, him being there is quite strange. Other reporters start rushing in, and the assistant notes that he will try to get in front. The director is extremely confused at this point, and the assistant rushes to Granell. He asks if they can do an interview, what his relationship with the Berserker Guild is, and if anything happened inside of the rupture. He bombards him with constant questions, and that's when Granell demands he move out of the way, as he is testing the utmost limits of his patience. The assistant is left shocked, and Granell leaves, as this place is too cold. The Berserker Guild is bombarded with interviewers who ask tons of questions. Leumi doesn't want to comment on any of their questions, but one of the guild members urges her to do otherwise, as this is their first big clear. She, however, still refuses, as they should interview that bastard instead. She is still very mad at what he told her, and that he pushed through and cleared the rupture first. She asks where he is, and a guild member notes that he left first, as he wanted to go home for a bit. Leumi is extremely mad, and the reporters can only watch her meltdown. How can he leave like this when she was basically acknowledging that he beat the entire rupture solo? She continues her rant, like a rabid chihuahua, and her guild tries to calm her down, as he must have had a good reason to leave like this. Suddenly, a second rupture gets cleared, and the interviewers flock to it. The second clears were Gaeun. The interviewers flock to it. The second clears were Gaeun, who look very tired and bloody. The interviewers flock to them, but Toman notices that the Berserker Guild is also here. Were they really the first ones to clear it? That's when Lee Wooney says something which catches everyone's attention, including the interviewers. At the base camp of the Gaeon Guild, Kamen and Taemin watch the news while eating some well-deserved hot noodles. What Lee Wooney said was that Gaeon wasn't the only good guild in Korea. This makes Taemin quite mad, as he saw her giving him some side-eye while she said that she got first clear, and this is all she says. They barely managed to clear it before them anyway. So why is she so smug? Chelman wonders what she really meant when saying something like this, and Taemin notes that she must have been insulting them, as nobody is as great as their guild in Korea. He gets so mad that he hands the ramen to one of their assistants, who happily takes it. However, it was empty, as he already ate it all. Kamen notes that she probably meant that she met a Korean player in the rupture, with Taman thinking that perhaps it was the Mythology Guild. Kamen notes that they are still in the rupture, and Taman finds it great at first, but then laments it, as he doesn't know who it could have been. Chilman says that he's not really sure, as it's hard to find a Korean who is better than them. However, there is only one person he can think of. Granell takes a hot shower and dances around as he is extremely happy. To get out of that cold, and enjoy some well-earned rest, Grenell finds Lee's attitude quite embarrassing. Lee says that, after a hot and nice shower like this one, he will take a good and long nap. Grenell stops for a second, and Lee fears the worst. Unfortunately for him, the worst comes to pass, as Grenell has detected some dust probably gathered while they weren't home, so he needs to get some cleaning done. Lee is extremely distraught as he wanted to rest badly. After cleaning everything and eating a meal out of scraps he found around, Grenell enjoys some tea while Lee watches him. However, he doesn't even feel sleepy anymore and looks at all the gear he got inside of the rupture. He thinks that there isn't anything really that useful in here, and also checks his stats. His level went up by 19, so it's now 86. It's not that much, considering that was a high difficulty rupture. And additionally, it was very dangerous. Magic uses less mana than skills usually do, and thanks to that, he was able to use it more, which is much better than the skills he had. Grenell notes that even with that, the regeneration of mana was very slow. That is a given however, as they do not have any accessories or equipment that help with it, and the Demon Hunter class has few benefits, with nothing related to skills. It would have been quite bad if they hadn't met that group, and he could have thanked them if only he knew who they were. Grenell notes that it is because he was lacking, surprising Lee quite a lot. Grenell did not really know how to be humble, as if someone were to underestimate him, he would prove himself. On the other hand, if someone were to overestimate him, he would meet their expectations and make their assumptions a reality. Why is he suddenly remembering this trait that he... Grenell explains that the next rupture will be in the Count family's territory, so there is no time to relax, as he can't depend solely on magic and has to get better at combat. He found a suitable subject for today's test anyway. Lee thinks that he's right. The players that were fighting alongside them had combat skills, with the short-haired girl being the most notable of the bunch. If he can copy those movements, his combat abilities would improve. Grenell pulls up a menu, and Lee urges him to stop, as he knows what he is doing, but begs him not to. Grenell activates another body training quest, despite Lee's words, as basics are the most important thing to take care of. However, he needs to do the dishes first, as cleanliness is also needed. Lee wonders where sleep will fit into all of this. Later that night, he starts running while listening to the radio, and Lee starts crying, as he only wants some sleep. Suddenly the radio station notes that they have some urgent news to share with everyone. Currently most of the territory outskirts ruptures have been cleared, and soon enough, the Count's territory will be available for raiding. However, according to some news they just received, the destruction progress rate of the Count's territory suddenly jumped to a large 60% despite it not being open just yet. At this rate, the Count's territory might break. Professionals are expressing worry about this matter. The Gaiheen Guild watches this, and Taman notes that this is an impossible situation. It's only been a day, but the destruction progress is already at 60%. How in the world is that even possible? Kamen explains that the time limit to clear gets shorter, the stronger the monsters inside of it are. Taman notes that it got faster for no reason. Does it mean that the monsters inside got stronger? Kamen notes that he will have to look further into all of this, as it is quite strange. At the Today Arcana camp, the director is in a frenzy, as there must be a reason the monsters suddenly got stronger. The assistant notes that there is no way to know, as even the advanced guild's analysts have no idea. The director says that something must be done about it. Otherwise it's over for all of them. If a rupture were to break down like this, once the monsters start spewing out, all the civilians will be butchered, and players will suffer the same fate. Grenell reads more about this, and finds out that this has never happened before, so it makes sense that nobody would know, since this information is only available on auction, which was destroyed. He needs to hurry, as vampires are creatures that share authority through their blood, and Count Ascura did the same with the monsters inside of the outskirts. When they died, the authority naturally goes back to the owner, and the Count probably just redistributed his authority with the monsters inside of the Count's territory. This is why the monsters became stronger and the destruction rate progressed. But if that's the case, if they raid the Count's territory, there is a risk that the Count's fortress will break down instantly afterwards. Count Ascura is an aristocrat that does not take back what he granted to others, so he will bestow judgment on him who is dirtying the honor of the aristocracy. Lee thinks that is cool and all, but what about sleep? Grenell notes that he can sleep only when he sees that thing dead. The Count's territory starts breaking and cracking, and only 5 hours are left until it breaks down. More people gather around the area. Count's territory. Rapture, and a streamer by the name of Park Hang welcomes his viewers back to his channel, which exudes determination. He is currently in the snowy mountains of Russia, as the Count's territory has reached a huge 70% destruction progress, so there are less than 5 hours until the rupture breaks out. The time is exactly 3:48 a.m., and there are tons of guilds here, despite how early it is. He pulls out a notebook and notes that he has some interesting points to make, but the chat is not that impressed, and mostly disses him. The grind never stops, however, so he explains that this time the Count's territory only has 30 entrances, way less than the previous Rapture, which had 200. Since there are so few entrances, various guilds decided to go into one Rupture at once. The XP and loot are distributed based on the contribution rate, so guilds need to balance each other in order for both to prosper. The chat continues to diss him, like usual, since they probably have nothing better to do, but that's when they spot Chan behind him. Hang turns around to see him, and indeed, it is Chan. Chan greets his team, and Timon asks how the Rupture entrance situation is. Chan explains that he looked into it thoroughly and found out that competition is basically inevitable since there are so few entrances. Timon notes that they are fine with anything as long as they are not going against Shoning. Chun tells him not to worry about them, as they went far north, because they want to go against the Unified Under Heaven Guild. Timon is surprised, as that is the guild which holds second rank, and Hung's chat begins talking about how the first and second guilds are duking it out. Chan says that Berserker is with Second Son and Bohemian, which makes T-Man think that they are better safe than sorry that way, but they will not gain much loot or experience. Hang's chat slowly disappears in front of him as people are going to watch other streams, so he tries pleading with them, but nobody is really listening at this point. Suddenly, someone arrives near them, and Taman's face contorts into a wicked smile. He shakes while asking what they are doing here. This is the fourth-ranking guild, Inazuma. Their guild master, Hisagi Kazuma, who is level 3076 and holds 6th place in the player rankings, says that this must be a coincidence, as the lowly Gaon guild is standing right in front of the Rupture he wants to enter. Hang is surprised that Inazuma is here, and his chat is even more intrigued right now. Taman notes that they were very insistent on not placing a branch of their guild in Korea, so their plane must have just landed, right? Kazuma laughs it off, and explains that it's much better and more economical to take the plane to Russia than set up a whole branch in Korea. Taman asks if he's really challenging them right now, and Kazuma notes that it isn't worth anything of value, so the world won't lose anything if they eliminate them. The guilds both start to exert their power and get ready to attack at a moment's notice. Hang is the first to catch this in action, and thinks that if he can record all of it, he just might make a fortune. That's when countless other streamers and reporters sweep beside him and rush to see Gaon and Inazuma in action. They rush in and ask tons of questions, with no real rhyme or reason, while Hang just watches from behind, as that is the only thing he can do right now. Shan explains that he knows how he feels about Inazuma, but the destruction progress of the Rapture is their biggest issue now. If two guilds compete, everybody will lose, and there isn't enough time for that. Suddenly, the streamers around start saying that Inazuma is better than Gaon as it's falling behind in 5th place. There is also the rivalry between the guild masters, which is quite sad, as Kazuma is in 6th place while Taman is a lowly 11th. All of these comments sting Chan like bees, and they are both extremely riled up now and ready to go. Chan explains that they were here first, so naturally it will not look good if they give up this space. He gestures to Taman to rip them apart quite strangely, who happily obliges. That is how Gaon and Inazuma went into the Eastern Rupture at the same time. The news gets wind of this and reports about their rivalry, and how their respective rankings and nationalities are bringing a lot of attention to the situation. At the northernmost Rupture are the first and second ranking guilds, Shining and Unified Under Heaven. In the Southern Rupture, the 30th ranked guild Berserker, the 7th ranked guild Second Son, and the 3rd ranked Bohemia all went in together. The destruction progress has already reached a dangerous 80%, so this is naturally causing fear and anxiety to be felt throughout the world. While inside of the Count's territory, Grinnell is having some tea, but the Rupture he went through is unknown. He thinks that the most useful thing he got from the last Rupture is the fact that running out of mana is extremely dangerous, so he had to figure out a way to use mana more efficiently during battle. The result is this magic designed from the alchemy skill, in which he shapes things into the stuff he wants. At first, to test things out, he got some rocks and changed them into a teacup and table. However, the more complex decor and the more detailed he wanted it, the more mana he had to spend, so it was not as efficient to use in battle. There was also one more thing he realized while pondering this issue. Suddenly, a few soldiers of the Count arrived, all of them level 300. Granal put his hand forward and noted that if this was all the authority the Count gave them, it was quite pathetic to say the least. A few rock formations rose above the soldiers, and Granal demanded they turn back into dust. He used the Restore to Original State skill, and crushed all of them. With this skill, almost no mana was used, and Granal noted that this was best classified as reversal magic, so he would name it just that. Lee lamented the cringy name, but let it go for now. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of the territory, a few soldiers were waiting for victims, but they seemed to be the victims instead, as Taman jumped on one and instantly killed it. The others saw this and jumped on him. But this made him smile. He used an extremely wide swing to hit all of them at once. Afterwards his guild also arrived, but Taman thought that something was amiss here, as he had only killed 10 monsters, which was very few for how deep they were. One of the guild members reported back and noted that Inazuma was in around the same state as them. They hadn't killed much, they entered the same rupture, sure, but they went completely different ways. So how did any of this make sense? Suddenly, Inazuma popped up, and Kazuma noted that it was quite peaceful around here, which he found to be boring. Taman asked why he thought they were friends all of a sudden, and they got into each other's face. Kazuma noted that he didn't really get why Taman hated him so much. It made him want to kill him. Taman tried to say something, but Chan contacted him over his earpiece, and noted that he had done the dungeon analysis and needed to get out of the square, as that place would be swarmed soon. They didn't get to, however, as the earth rumbled and Taman's expression changed. The Count's knights arrived, all of them level 350. Taman demanded that everyone get ready to fight, and Kazuma also drew his weapon, as this was not the time to bicker like they usually did. Taman thought that cavalry had much more destructive power than average terrain units, so even if all their tankers combined went in front, they would suffer mortal injuries. So what was he supposed to do in a situation like this? Kazuma said that he didn't like this idea at all, but he asked Taman to take his back while he focused on the front. Slowly but surely, the enemies surrounded them, and there was nothing they could do. Chantan told Taman that this situation was too dangerous, as even the unified Underheaven Guild suffered extreme casualties from a single cavalry ambush. They should not fight and instead lure them somewhere where they couldn't come in all at once. Taman thought that he would like to retreat, but that seemed impossible right now. Suddenly, the earth started cracking beneath them, and large pillars eliminated most of the cavalry and blocked the rest. They were all extremely surprised by this and wondered who could have saved them in this manner. That's when Granel showed himself, and Chan was extremely shocked to see him. He told Taman that this was the man they wanted to recruit, and who had saved their lives. Meanwhile, Wang was still streaming in on Gaon's tail inside the rupture despite how dangerous that was. While he tracked them down, his 12 viewers continued to diss him, with many saying that a lot of streamers were already on Gaon, so he should do something more interesting. He told them that he would try to go after the Inazuma Guild and see what he could dig up, but that's when he heard a large explosion, and his chat was very surprised by it. Someone donated 4.A1 for him to check it out, so he got going as fast as he could. The guild masters of both guilds were extremely surprised, as there were stone pillars all over the battlefield. Kazuma looked at Granel and wondered just what type of monster this was for him to summon all of that without chanting a single spell. Kazuma thought that he must have extreme amounts of mana, and also found his attire quite weird, considering this place was basically a battlefield. Just who was this guy? Suddenly, one of his subordinates told everyone that knights had started to appear between the pillars. However, Taman saw this as an opportunity. The stone pillars were slowing down the horses significantly, so this was the perfect time to strike. He explained that he would have to thank Granel later, as he had a few horses to butcher. He also activated his berserk skill, which increased his attack damage by a ton and dulled the damage he received. He jumped high into the air and thought that with these pillars advantaging him, this battle was his. He cut one of the horsemen in two, and the impact of the attack permeated throughout, also damaging the others. Kazuma saw this as an opportunity to shine, so he told his guild to charge forward. They did so, and Hang was glad that he caught all of this, wondering who this amazing mage was as his view count rose to 30. They also observed Granel, using reversal magic as he crushed 2 horsemen. Wing and the chat could only stare in awe, as they found it hard to believe what just happened, but it was real. Granel summoned a dagger, and noticed that its durability was pretty high, but he wouldn't want to bring it down. Wing's chat saw this as him playing with the mob's life. Granel thought that if he interfered with the dagger's mana to change it and then reversed it back to normal, right after, the durability shouldn't be affected. This should work, as when he changed the rock into a cup, it had a cup-like durability. When he changed it back, the rock turned back to normal. If this ability to restore to the original state really brought it back to the original state like advertised, it was entirely possible for him to transform the dagger into silver ore and strike the mob, leveling up in the process. His presumptions seemed to be correct, as the dagger didn't lose a single point of durability if he reverted it right after. Lee was glad about this, as now they wouldn't have to pay for the repair fees, meaning more money in their pockets. The Gan Guild congratulated themselves for a job well done, but Taman was stuck looking at Granel, who was enjoying some well-deserved tea. Chulin explained that this was the person they wanted, and Taman noted that he had heard him earlier. Now that he saw him in action, he wanted him even more and didn't want other guilds to sink their teeth into him, especially since Inazuma also saw what he was capable of. They would offer him a 10-0 deal while also throwing in something as a bonus. After some thinking, Wang found the courage to come next to Granel, and asked if he was willing to do an interview. Wang's viewership skyrocketed to 68,000, and his chat started singing for Granell. That's when members from the Inazuma Guild started swarming him and asked if he would like to join their guild, as he was quite the amazing individual. Taman pushed around them and offered Granell a handshake while introducing himself. He also mentioned that he had texted him recently about joining their guild, so maybe he already knew him. Granell looked him dead in the eyes and noted that there was not a single shred of formality to be found around here, so he would not be taking any questions, as he had more important matters to attend to. The chat exploded with comments as they found it either very cool or funny. News about Granell spread across the internet, and the Shining Guild seemed to be very interested in this. Their leader, Lox, asked his two subordinates what they thought. Camila noted that she didn't know anything about magic, as she was an archer, and Dimitri, the 8th rank player, screamed that they didn't know. He also told Lox off, saying that he was quite popular, so he didn't know how desperate Lox was. He barely managed to get this date, but now he was in this meeting with him and missing all of the fun. Or what? Just a bastard on a screen? Camila took a closer look at Granell and noted that he did look cool, so if Lox was this worried about him, why didn't they just scout him? Dimitri noted that it was obvious why, because this bastard of a leader was jealous. Even though they cleared the Count's family territory first, everyone was talking about that man instead of him. Camila noted that they were probably just hyping him up like they usually did, and Dimitri agreed, while also saying that he couldn't be this late to a date, so he needed to go already. With that, both he and Camila left, letting Lox look at the screen in peace. That's when another member came behind him and noted that what this man did was like magic, but not really. This was Jessie Hesse, a level 3097 and the 4th ranking player. Lox noted that he had never heard her describing something as cool, and she began analyzing further. She started smiling and said that this person was quite interesting and should be studied further. At the Berserker Guild camp, Leonie was extremely angry that they missed recruiting Granell, as the others didn't let her, so now she was taking her anger out on them. At the Inazuma Guild camp, Kazuma got a call from someone who noted that they must bring that silver-haired man to their side, no matter what it took. In the latest news, the reporter explained that the Count family territory had been cleared successfully. Shining and Unified Under Heaven both fought valiantly for first place, but eventually, Shining was the victor and took first place. The only ruptures left now were the Count's family fortress, with its destruction rate being at 72%. Currently, because of this high risk of a rupture happening, there was a lot of tension within the different base camps. If the fortress rupture really were to fall, they could basically wipe Russia off the map, so the only thing they could do was at least wish them luck and pray for them. Granell, after taking a shower, watched the news about him, which described him as a mysterious player. Many news outlets discussed him at length, and reaction channels started blowing things out of proportion, like usual. One of the news outlets noted that building so many pillars from just a flick seemed impossible to do with current abilities, so they asked their rupture specialist. He explained that the situation was dire, and if Granell had been a second late to the party, many people would have died there. The player who did all of this knew that the knights were betting on their mobility, so he changed the terrain. That, combined with his quick thinking, was what saved Gaimian and Izuma. From then on, he just watched, which seemed to be his way of being nice to the other guilds, basically saying that it was their time to shine. Granell thought that he was just out of main air at the time, but Lee thought it was great. They weren't calling him an asshole like what would usually happen. He also checked the loot they got, and among it was a rare item, the first one he got. This was a necklace imbued with the blood curse, which must be purified in order to bring out its real effect. These items were called devil items, as once the curse was broken, a random effect was unsealed, so basically a gotcha item. Players would usually throw this away because of the effort needed to break the curse. However, there is another proper way to use a cursed item with the exorcism ritual skill, which invites a demon into one's head. Lee thinks that this is one of the 2 exclusive demon hunter skills, and it's needed in order to use the item as an offering. The basic effect of the skill is that one can attack a demon without harming the person it possessed, like he did with Cholin. But things change when there is an offering in play, as he can invite a demon into his very consciousness. It's similar to the status abnormality given to humans by demons, although there is the possibility of being possessed by the demon if one has a low mental stat. However, if he can fight the demon inside his head, where it's more advantageous for him, things will be easier. Suddenly, he gets a call from Chilman, and Lee thinks it might be because of how Granell basically embarrassed their guildmaster on live television. They don't accept the call and instead write a message to maybe clear things out. Granell, however, didn't get the memo, so he writes a single word, troublesome. He left out that he didn't want to be sued, making Chilman and Taman think that he was ignoring them again. Tam sighs as he only wanted to apologize for being informal and offer him a deal. They watch the playback of the news and see that, indeed, things were informal, as everyone tried to talk to him at once. They also see that his eyes were tired, so he was struggling to hold his anger in. This was just because he was tired, due to the amount of mana he used. Taemin says that there is nothing they can do now, as the count is more important at the moment. The destruction rate of the rupture rises to 83%, so they need to cut their rest short and go in. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking, and some urgent news starts blaring out of every speaker. The Count family fortress rupture has broken down, as it has reached 100% destruction rate. In an instant, the base camps are now in disarray, and there are around 200 injured. The United Nations and US are advising Russia to close their borders now, so the players need to evacuate as fast as possible. The Count's fortress pops up into the real world, and Granel also arrives, not being that surprised that it collapsed. The others watch him as he goes in alone, and he stops at a statue. He notes that it is quite distasteful, and with that, he becomes the first man to officially enter the fortress. Granel wonders how that old and decrepit vampire dares to call this place a fortress, but well, it does fit him, since he is what he is. Lee thinks that Granel is saying all of this solely because the mansion of his family was at least 10 times bigger than this place, which speaks volumes. Suddenly the eyes of the gargoyle statue start glowing a deep red, which spooks Lee a bit. The statue snaps out of its eternal rest and starts cracking around as it gets ready to attack Granel. The other players are as shocked as Lee and wonder if they should help Granel, as he is famous for attacking with a dagger, and if he only has that, he can't hope to win against that stone beast. Or perhaps, since the rupture has fully come out into the real world, should they just run away? The gargoyle attempts to strike Granel with all its might, but with only one flick of his fingers, he shatters it into tiny pieces within a split second. The Shining Guild hears the commotion and wonders what that noise is, as it seemed to come from the fortress. Camila says that this sounded exactly like the noise from the video they watched about that white-haired guy, and Jesse, probably out of sheer curiosity, starts flying towards that direction. Lox tells her to stop, as they were about to go in anyway, so they should do so together. However, she doesn't listen to a word of his, as she is extremely curious at this point. The other players look at Granel in awe, as he defeated that mighty-looking gargoyle in a single attack. Lee notes that it was made out of plain stone, and he's broken too many of those in the past for this to be any difficulty. Granel explains that the particular statue was of poor quality, poor texture, material and creation. They put such a piece of garbage in their garden like it was something they should be proud of. Pathetic creature. The players start screaming, and with newfound confidence, they charge in, all eager to see what the mansion has to offer. Lee is surprised by their sudden change of heart, and Granel spots another quest popping up in front of him. This one is a class quest, and is a sub-quest for the prologue of the counterattack class quest. What it entails is to make the vampires feel fear about being hunted. Lee is puzzled by this quest and wonders what that even means. But Granel gets going instantly, as this is not the time to hesitate about things. Lee urges him to just sit and think about this for a bit. They can't just go kill it now, and how is he going to make him feel any type of fear? The Count is an ancient vampire who is level 430, and they are only level 100. Granel says only that he is a demon hunter, which enrages Lee, as that has nothing to do with this. Eventually, they arrive at a banquet hall, and Granel notices something strange, as the portraits of the Count start to emanate. A strange feeling. Sure enough, in another place inside the mansion, the Gaean Guild is barely standing on its feet, as they are all affected. Kelman asks Tommen if he is okay, who notes that he's fine. He's just a little suffocated. Ever since they entered this hallway, which is full of paintings of the Count, he feels like he is being constantly watched, just like the status abnormalities the demons usually cast. Kelman knows exactly what this means, that the portraits are connected to the Count directly, so they should burn them as quickly as possible. After they do that, they all feel much better. Shellman explains that this is why all of the players that went in first were retreating so fast, because everything in that damned castle is a trap. All of the portraits, statues, and even the interior items, everything is causing abnormalities. It makes perfect sense now why the Shining Guild didn't enter through the main gate. Tammen thinks that they just have more experience, so it's a given. However, even if his class is Barbarian, which is more equipped to sustain status abnormalities, he feels so overwhelmed already. How bad will all of this get once they go further in? Granel walks around the halls and notes that all of these portraits are utter garbage. How can they eat in here with all of this garbage strewn around the place? They surely have strong stomachs. Lee says that he is too harsh, even if this guy is a vampire, but Granel continues nonetheless. The statues around here are the same type of garbage. He now feels bad for the stone that had to be sculpted into something so ugly. And in the first place, why are there so many portraits around here? Now he fully understands why people think that narcissism is a disorder. The whole layout of the castle is also to be laughed at, as there are a bunch of unnecessary forks in the hallways, and also hallways that lead to empty walls. If they really thought this layout through before building the fortress, they must not have a single brain cell in that empty head of theirs. That's when he notices that throughout his ridicule of this place, he arrived at a stairway, which leads to a pretty large door. This makes Granel smile, as judging from the placing and the stench that comes from behind that door, this must be the main area where the Count is situated. Lee is a bit hesitant to charge in, as that place just seems off in every way, but before they can fully go up the stairway, Jessie pops up in front of Granel, happy that she finally found him. She explains that she saw his really cool and unique magic. Granel just looks at her, and she starts yapping about how curious she was about him and the skills he uses, while Lee thinks that if she's floating like this, without a care in the world, she must have endless amounts of mana. She asks if they can talk about his magic, as she is very curious, but Granel explains that she should watch her manners. He puts his hand on her shoulder, pulling her down, and notes that if she wants to be taught something, the bare minimum is to have some manners when asking. Jessie just looks at him, but her usually cheery expression is shattered into fear as the Count himself has come out of his room. This activates Granel's natural enemy skill, and the Count explains that he wondered who woke him up from his restful sleep. But it was just two measly humans. How foolish of them. Jessie thinks that the Count's power is truly overwhelming and asks Granel if he is alright. However, he doesn't hear her, as he is too focused on that stinking vampire Count. How funny, as he should only be called Ascura. All he is a rather vulgar and vicious vampire. He takes out the necklace he got earlier and uses it as an offering. Today he will be taught an important lesson for pretending to be of real aristocratic lineage. He activates the skill Exorcism Ritual, and Lee now gets it. If they do manage to activate the ritual, they could bring Ascura into his consciousness and fight there. So this is what Granel meant by saying that he is a vampire hunter, as his head is filled with thoughts about eradicating demons. Will this be okay? However, as Ascura is still level 430. If things go wrong, they might get possessed. Ascura starts laughing at his necklace, and notes that all of this is quite a pity in his eyes. He likes his arrogance, but he is still nothing more than a lowly human. Jessie explains that the Count is now absorbing the power he shared with his subordinates, but Lee already knows. And this is very bad. He is already 300 levels above them, but if he were to absorb all of the power he shared with his subordinates, that level gap will become much larger. That's when the necklace breaks, and they are both transported to another place, Granel's mind. Ascura wonders where this place really is, but that's when he spots Granel and begins laughing maniacally. This is quite the unique trick, at least for a human, but he can simply destroy him and get out of his foolish mind. He tries to hit Granel with a few flaming attacks, and after the smoke clears, he is nowhere to be seen, making Ascura think that he completely annihilated him. Granel speaks from another side and asks if that is really what he thinks of him. Ascura is a bit annoyed that this guy is still alive and asks how he managed that. Granel urges him to watch closely, as the one who died will be presented to him shortly. Ascura watches him with worry in his eyes, but that worry turns into shock, as Granel is now standing on a dead version of him. Ascura cannot believe what he is seeing, and in the real world, he starts slashing around with his power. There is no way he died. This is all a mental trick, a measly ruse, trying to make him think of the worst. Jessie wonders what is happening, as that white-haired mage is still, but the Count is going on a rampage. Granel mocks him, noting that he seems quite afraid, which makes Ascura scream at him to shut up while blowing the ceiling up completely. Lee just looks at the night sky, as they almost died. Jessie thinks that he predicted the attack was going to miss. That is why he is so relaxed. Truly, an amazing individual. Lee thinks that they didn't move because there was literally no time to react, and Granel uses the skill Exorcism Ritual once again. This skill allows the user to attack only the demon, should that particular demon be in possession of a human. However, there is an entirely different effect should the user use an offering. That effect is to forcibly invite the demon into the consciousness of the demon hunter. Whoever wins in this situation depends solely on one's mental fortitude. Ascura tries to attack him with some bats, as he is extremely scared, but this is only natural, as there is no way Granel would be affected by something like a lowly demon. Jessie just watches in awe, as this is truly an unbelievable sight. Just what did he do to the Count? He is screaming like a maniac, and trying to attack in completely random places while running away in utter fear. Ascura tries to deny all of these visions, but eventually he is afflicted with fear, and Jessie finds that what he is going through right now resembles what demons afflict humans with. With this, Granel completes the quest to scare him to death. So all that is left is to take care of him. Shun? Jessie starts to ask countless questions, like how he did it and what magic type it is, but he ignores her and strikes Ascura to end him once and for all. But he stops, as that attack basically did no damage. He tells Jessie to kill him, making her ask why. He was the one who did everything, so why should she be the one to do it? He can certainly do it on his own. So why? Granville looks in the other direction from the shame, and Lee starts cringing hard, pleading with Jessie to catch on already, as this is too much for his poor heart. She seems to have gotten something, noting that she was the one who asked for his teachings. So now he is basically trying to tell her that if she becomes stronger, she can learn that new magic on her own. Isn't that right? She creates a few runes next to Ascura, and moments later a large beam destroys him, which surprises Lee quite a bit. With that, the distribution rate is calculated, and he also receives tons of levels. Jessie crouches down and looks at what remains of the count. A bunch of ash. Lee thinks that even if that guy was weakened, she still basically one-shot a level 430 demon in a single attack. Is this really the power of a high-ranking player? Jessie, out of simple curiosity, starts picking up some of the ash and eating it, which shocks Lee, but not Granell, who is looking at something else. The system congratulates him on completing the quest and gives him another class quest. This class quest is called Brewing and tells him that with the prologue out of the way, now he is the only beacon of light in this world full of demons and evil. The Shining Guild arrives at the scene and asks what she did. Did she defeat the Count? As all of their status abnormalities have seemingly disappeared. She tries to say something, but they also spot Granell and she starts looking at him. She explains that she is not very familiar with manners, but she will try her utmost to hold them. She introduces herself to Granell as Jessie Hesse, and also asks Granell for his name, if it's not too rude to ask. The guild watches and waits eagerly for a response. In a show of complete symbiosis, Granell and Lee have the same thoughts. This girl does have bad manners, but she is willing to change and learn, which can't be said for a lot of people, so she will be rewarded with his name. Their name, he is Lee Hoyeol. In an apartment complex, a woman is preparing some food, while her daughter watches the news, which still talks about Lee and his exploits. The daughter recognizes him and pulls on her mother's skirt, saying her Uncle Lee is on TV. She wonders what she is talking about, but when she looks at the TV, she sees when Lee introduced himself to the whole world, albeit reluctantly. This woman is one of his sisters. Later, while cleaning, she gets a call from him, and thinks that it was about time one of them called. Ever since the defeat of Ascura, all that appeared on any type of media was his face, so it was only a matter of time before his family found out about this. He gets a few calls from two sisters, and the third one starts calling him also. All of these three sisters are older than him, and they have been close ever since they were young. Well, except him, who was the only boy and constantly bullied. He doesn't really want to pick up the phone, as they will surely start screaming at him like they usually did. That's when 3 bangs can be heard from the door, and the sisters demand he open it, as they know he is in there. Lee is extremely scared, and the sisters wait eagerly. The one on the left is the first sister, named Uni. The second one is named Yoon, and the third one is Jarim. Granell opens the door and notes that they are being too loud, and the neighbors will consider them nuisances. So first they should calm down and come inside. They are all surprised by his change, but Yim is shocked at another news outlet. Lee is the talk of the town, as Lee appeared out of nowhere, and is the one who defeated Ascura, accompanied by Jessie Hesse, someone from the Shining Guild. Despite all of the interviewers trying to get more out of him, he simply said that he is Lee Hoyeol and left. Chillman watches all of this, while chilling on the couch, and Taman hands him some hot cocoa, as they deserve it after what happened. Chillman wonders if Lee will even consider joining their guild, as he has become the talk of the town and a lot of guilds are surely trying to scout him as they speak. Taman explains that even if this is true, he is still most likely to come to them, as they have his number and a reason to contact him. The loot they got from the fight with the horsemen in the square was all thanks to him, so it would be quite impolite not to share some with him. Chillman asks how much he is planning on giving him, but Taman tells him that is not important. What is important is that, even if they somehow lose him and another guild gets to him first, they need to make sure they leave an everlasting impression. In order to do that, they will give him everything if they have to. So, they should call him right now. They do just that, but he is busy, as his niece is doing his hair while his sisters chat. Uni, third in the family ranking, tells him that his new hair color is pretty cool. Yunen, who is ranked 4th, starts laughing at him for that, saying he looks like one of those K-pop stars. Yunen, who is 5th in the family ranking, just looks at him, finding his tone extremely strange. The niece is ranked 6th, while Lee, who asks them what type of tea they want, is ranked last, 7th. June is laughing until tears come out of her eyes, while Yim notes that he has become much gentler in nature. Yim says that if he became a player, it means he was synchronized with his character, right? Lee confirms it, but gets interrupted by his niece, who wants something from him. The sisters look at this site and think of the old days, specifically 10 years ago. Lee knows what's coming, and sure enough, the sisters begin talking about the era when he thought of himself as Granfell and also dyed his hair white. Lee starts cringing extremely hard and wants them to stop, but they still talk about how he greeted their parents like an aristocrat, which was extremely funny. Yim looks at him and asks if he is in any type of danger. They were all very surprised when they heard about him, as players get injured all the time, and he also doesn't pick up his phone at all, so they were extremely worried about him. This makes Lee smile, as even with their constant mocking in their heart of hearts, they still love him. They also say that he can quit whenever he wants, as they are on his side always. Lee tries to apologize for worrying them like this, and tells them that he is actually fine, but Granal tells them that he, the demon hunter Granal Claudia Arpus Romeo, is plenty suited for the job, so they needn't worry. Dee wonders if he should just end it all, as that was so cringe he doesn't even know what to say. Later, having finished their tea, they get ready to leave, and Granal wishes them farewell and says he is looking forward to meeting them again. Yum remembers that she had to tell him something before leaving. That is, to save some money. Lee wonders what savings she's talking about, as he doesn't have any money. But that's when he remembers that he must get the Rupture Clear reward. This is the player's main source of funding, directly from the developers of Arcana. The amount differs a lot depending on the contribution and difficulty of the rupture. He eagerly checks his account but blocks the last number with his fingers, wondering how much it's going to be, 10 or perhaps 20 million won. At the Shining Guild, Camila bothers Jessie constantly, wanting to know more about Lee, as he seems interesting. Jessie tells her every time that she doesn't know much about him, but Camila doesn't give up. This makes Jessie emanate a dangerous aura and tell her that she is focusing on something right now, so can she be left alone. Camila gives up and wonders why Jessie is watching videos on Korean etiquette. Of all things, Jessie continues watching the video, and a notification appears telling her that the reward for clearing the rupture was sent. Lee also finds out about the amount of money he was given, and almost faints from shock. 110 billion won was credited to him, which is a lot of cash. But Granal finds it annoying that he is so happy over pocket money. The loot that Lee got automatically after killing Ascura was his vampire orb, which is a unique rank cursed item, the same as the necklace. Lee from the past would have instantly dissed this item, probably saying that it's trash and that undoing the seal is impossible. But while it can be used as an offering for an exorcism ritual, even if it's trash, it's befitting for a trash class like his to use it. However, he is different right now. When he used the necklace imbued with the blood's curse in order to face Count Ascura, he first thought that the item would simply vanish from his inventory. But it is still there, and with the curse undone too. His presumption is that the ritual purified the item somehow, but now he doesn't know what to do. He has the orb, the necklace, and 100 billion won. Due to all of this sitting on his head, especially the money, he can't get a wink of sleep, constantly wondering what to do. Get items? Put the money into his savings account? Maybe even tell his family about it? Granel tells him to think less, as he is trying to sleep. Lee doesn't stop overthinking, wondering if it would be better to get some equipment since he is going into ruptures. But it would also be an utter waste to get a lot of gear for this level. When he killed Ascura, his level grew by 34, so now he is level 13. He was level 55 literally just a few days ago, so considering the fast rate at which he has been growing, it's not wise to spend like a maniac on things that would be useless in a few weeks. He would like a few mana recovery items, but they are exceedingly rare, and when they go on sale, they are too expensive. Granel urges him to get off the phone and rest, as he is hurting his retinas from all that screen time. Lee tells him to shut up, saying that he is a millionaire now, so he doesn't have to worry about such petty things, right? The next day, at the OA Korean department, all of the employees are called for a meeting, where someone presents what happened to the knights that Lee defeated. Based on this, and some presumptions, it is highly possible that this is alchemy. One of the employees wonders if that could be true, while another slams the table and notes that this is utter nonsense. Alchemy could never create such giant columns of rock like that. Nobody could ever hope to have the mana for something like that. Eventually, the meeting falls into just bickering, while an experienced employee watches them as they gnash at each other's throats. He thinks this is very exhausting, as everywhere he goes, literally everybody is talking about this new guy Lee Hoyeol, or whatever. The newbie asks if he knows anything about that guy, but the experienced employee notes that they're in the same situation. If he doesn't know, then he has no clue either. The newbie explains that in just a few days, his life turned into a nightmare, as everyone including his friends and family are asking him to tell them about Lee. Nobody even goes by that name in the Arcana database. So is that his real name or just an alias to throw reporters off? The experienced employee says that it's Thursday, so when the new update drops, he's sure all of this fangirling over one guy will eventually die down. That's when they get information about the new update, and they both stare in awe as a new region has been added to the world. the Asura archipelago. This place is known to those who played the game in the past, as it was a mystical region nicknamed the Island of Treasure. Of course, what flew around were only rumors, as nobody was ever able to find it, but it was said that everything living in that place was treasure, so valuable, in fact, that it was incomparable to anything they had. Such an amazing place will surely bring more life and hope to the world. On the news there is coverage of the new update regarding the Treasure Island, but there is also news about how the Academic Society of Mages will be reconvened. This Society of Mages, which is a near constant discussion and debate between the most experienced mages, has always helped mages improve their skills greatly. Lee and Grinnell watch this coverage on the phone, and something more interesting seems to be happening. Jesse from the Shining Guild was also one of the invited players and is entering the tower right this very moment. Grinnell continues to do his pull-ups while watching, and Lee laments that he scolded her about manners, since she is literally the fourth-ranking player in the world. Grinnell doesn't really care much about Lee's annoyances right now, and notes that he is more interested in the Academic Society of Mages. There's also a saying that goes with them: the Tower of the Mages has magic, but not skills. Lee recognizes this quote, as it was written in the description of the Mage's Tower back when Arcana was still a video game. Grinnell explains that he doesn't know what this society is even about, but he will probably get something out of it if he goes there. Yes, he will do that, right after cleaning the dishes, of course. Lee doesn't even know what to say at this point, so he just lets it go. At the Mage's Tower, countless people gather in front as they patiently wait for the doors to open. A girl who is affiliated with the Mage's Tower, Cleo, is very happy that the Academic Society is happening once again. She wonders what kinds of things she will learn, and if Morello, the head mage, will really be presenting his research today. A random person walks backward, while talking with his friends, and doesn't see Cleo, so a crash is about to happen. Cleo, however, remains untouched, and the guy's friends begin laughing at him as he runs into a wall. Cleo calls him an idiot, and that's when Jesse comes around and tells her not to call people idiots, as this illusionary wall is a spell cast by the Tower Master for the meeting, so it's hard for common people to see through it. Cleo apologizes profusely, noting that indeed, it's as Jesse says. The random group looks at the wall in awe as they see Jesse go through it. Cleo explains that she is the guide for this meeting, and is supposed to take anyone who was invited to the Crystal Hall. She is actually the last person here, so she is also going to go in, as nobody else should be coming. Jesse wonders if that's really the case, and notes that she would like to wait here just a little while longer. She has a strange feeling that a certain someone will be coming very soon. Eventually, Grinnell makes his way to the Mage's Tower, and both of them think that each time they come to this place, it's way too crowded. Today especially, there are far too many people, maybe because they're trying to get to Usra, or perhaps even join the Mage's Society. That's when someone recognizes Lee, and in a short second, he is bombarded with admirers asking him for countless things. Both Lee and Grinnell are peeved by this, and begin thinking of ways to get away. That's when a random person grabs his bag, and notes that he's a really big fan. If Lee gives him just one picture, he'll stop bothering him. Grinnell thinks this bastard is pulling on something too important. His brown rice green tea, which costs 5,001 per tea bag. This is the only thing he splurged on with his hard-earned cash. Thus Grinnell tells him to screw off, which shocks Lee as that might have been too harsh, even if the guy was being quite annoying. But maybe if he disappoints these people, he'll get less attention, so perhaps it's for the best. Unfortunately for him, instead of being disappointed, the annoying man starts fangirling even harder, claiming that he was insulted by Lee in real life. More and more people start requesting the same treatment, which makes Lee disappointed in the human race. They both think of ways to get out of this debacle, and that's when they see the wall, which seems different. Grinnell starts running toward it with full force, even with other people warning him about it. Sure enough, he almost falls over Cleo after stopping, which makes him note that this is some praiseworthy illusion they've got here. Cleo escorts Grinnell up the stairs. She looks at him from time to time, wondering who he is. All the people who were invited are definitely already inside, so even if she flips through the invite list countless times, this man is just not there. Grinnell observes her rummaging through the list, and asks if there's a problem. Cleo immediately thinks of how she was pinned when they first met, and says there is none. He does want to attend the meeting, doesn't he? Grinnell confirms that he does, but Cleo finds it extremely strange that this man could see through the illusion magic. It was put in place by the Tower Master himself. So just who is he? She continues to blush and stare heavily, which makes Lee wonder if she has a fever or is sick. Grinnell asks if he can't attend without an invitation, and Cleo explains that people who can actually see through the illusion magic are allowed to attend the meeting, even if they didn't get an invitation prior. However, he is the first to ever do such a thing, so she is amazed and genuinely curious about what kind of man he is in an academic sense, of course. Grinnell again notes that it's a very extraordinary illusion spell and continues walking, while Lee analyzes the steps they are walking on, thinking that with enough mana he could recreate them. Eventually they arrive at the Crystal Hall, the place of knowledge and inquiry. When Arcana became a reality, the NPCs from the game also appeared in real life. The one who is said to have more influence than all of them combined is the youngest head mage, Marcello, who is nicknamed the future successor of the Mage's Tower. He is the fastest, wisest mage there is, and nobody even comes close to his wisdom. The hat on Jessie's head keeps talking about how amazing Marcello is, but she doesn't care in the slightest, which makes the hat angry, as this is top priority wizard lore. Jessie explains that this whole meeting is making her sleepy, and it's also very boring. Magic, in and of itself, is a skill to her. So, inspection and interference, the things being talked about here are irrelevant to her. She would have skipped all of this if it weren't for her dumb class quest, so at least she has to put up with it. Marcello notices her and asks if she is bored. He explains that the tower was summoned to this world for explorers and a myriad of other reasons. However, it wasn't directly summoned, it was more a part of an interference, what they now call a new update, which continues to happen even to this day. He's quite sure that they're not used to their form of magic. It's just like how they have difficulty understanding science. But in order to figure out what's going on and regain peace in their world, they must work together, no matter what. This actually segues into something he was going to talk about, science. He has figured out a possibility to further develop their magic through science. He creates a small ball of flame and notes that this is fusion, ignition created by joining magic and science together. Even if this is an entirely new development, they must approach it carefully. They do not know what kind of things might happen when combining two entirely different forces. Jessie is now quite interested in the lecture, as it has finally caught her attention. But that's when Marcello notes that because of this discovery, he needs their help. Everyone at the lecture thinks that this is a quest of some sort. Marcello says that if anyone has questions, they should feel free to ask. Granell is the first to raise his hand and explains that there were quite a few uncertainties in Marcello's earlier inspection, and he would like his opinion on the matter. Everyone is surprised that he would actually question the head mage, while Jessie is glad that he's here. She knew he would come. Meanwhile, the council on the other side starts sweating and most sigh as Marcello isn't the calm sort. Things are about to get out of hand real quick. Marcello stares at Granell and asks why he thinks that way. Granell begins explaining that it's quite simple. He just feels the estrangement. Science and magic are entirely different concepts, each with their own rules. So there are unnecessities, because estrangement occurs in the process of their combination. He experiences something similar when combining skills and magic. To everyone's shock, he recreates the same fusion magic that Marcello had just demonstrated. Marcello is stunned to his core, as it took him months just to activate that spell, and yet this man did it in an instant. How could an explorer experience estrangement and successfully replicate fusion? Everyone in the hall feels the same shock Marcello did, and that's when they realize that this man is Lee Hoyeol. Granell explains that using centrifugal force actually improves the spell's effectiveness. Even if it's still a bit lacking at the moment, it's not a bad result. Lee adds that the default ignition consumed far too much mana, which he didn't want to waste, so he substituted it with centrifugal force, making the process much easier. Granell thinks it was a good choice to come here and brandishes his very happy face, which unfortunately makes people think he's sneering. To them, it looks like this must be child's play for him. At first, Marcello seems defeated by this surprising level of development, but with newfound confidence, he asks Lee to join him in his research, saying it would greatly improve and hasten their work. This offer comes in the form of a quest, which Granell accepts instantly, as he is genuinely pleased, even if his expression makes it look like he just defeated Marcello and is now reveling in his glory. In the Asura archipelago, Lee Hoyeol and her guild arrive. She isn't too happy, as it's far too crowded for her liking. One of the members kisses her on the cheek, finding her annoyance cute, while another notices that the place isn't just packed with reporters. There are also many Arcanian NPCs. Among them are the Lionheart Knights, the Shadow Mercenary Troops, and even the Explorer Alliance. Another member remarks that this place is known as a treasure island, so of course the NPCs would be interested in it too. That's when Leonie's phone rings. It's one of her members who attended the Mage's Tower meeting. She explains that Lee was there, and that he told the head mage his magic was flawed. Leonie reels from laughter, noting that the guy is a real psycho. The mage continues explaining that Marcello not only admitted Lee was right, but even gave him a quest. Somewhere in the Mage's Tower, Marcello asks Granell to write down anything he needs for the research, and he will do his utmost to obtain it. Both Granell and Lee are happy about this, as they can use the opportunity to their advantage. Eventually, Marcello is summoned to the top floor of the Mage's Tower. There, the 5 stars of the tower berate him for inviting an explorer to work with them, as it violates their rules. Why would a mage even do such a thing? Marcello explains that Lee perfectly understands magic and even managed to overcome the gap between magic and science, something he himself struggled with for months. His talents can't be wasted. They are needed now more than ever to improve the world. The 5 stars tell him that mages should act independently and take responsibility for their actions. They will respect his judgment for now, but he should remember that eventually he will need to take responsibility for his decisions. With that, he is excused. Marcello internally laments having to work under these boomer bastards who refuse help from outside sources out of pride, a choice that will only hurt them in the long run. Cleo approaches from behind and tells him she's on her way to pick up the items Lee requested. Marcello says if that's the case, she should hand them to him, as he was heading there anyway. He has something to check. Cleo, though confused, accepts his request. Eventually, Marcello presents Grenell with the items he and Lee requested. Items that improve mana regeneration and various advanced magic texts. He asks if Grenell likes them, but Grenell laments seeing them at all, as they are far too high level for him. He tells Marcello that they're not fit for someone like him. Quite literally, in fact. Marcello is surprised but somewhat expected. He apologizes for underestimating him, and admits he was curious why he requested mana regeneration items, but now he understands. He then hands Grenell a hexagram brooch, part of a 6-piece set. It's a level 100 item that regenerates 10% of mana when magic is used. Lee thinks this is exactly the type of item he wanted, as it greatly improves his capabilities. Marcello notes that he realized Lee was an amazing mage when he pointed out the flaws in his fusion magic, but to think he also knew about this item, truly amazing. Lee wonders what's so great about this low-level and rather simple item, while Grenell stares at Marcello. He explains that unfortunately they can't carry out the proper research just yet. He needs to fix his magic first. The quest updates, telling him to wait for Marcello's call. Grenell notes that he'll wait for him to overcome himself. Marcello thanks him once again, while thinking that if it's with him he might finally be able to change how the mage's tower operates.